Hello at 3:55 and welcome to week 4. Just a quick touch base on where we've been so far in the first 3 weeks. You guys have built in 3 different elements into your interactive notebook, and I've been looking at those and I'm loving them. They look wonderful. So great work and time well invested because it's a tool that you will continue to use as a classroom teacher. You've also had 3 discussion boards that you've been participating in. I know not everyone may have had a chance to do all of them, but those are the kind of things that are best if we can keep on our timeline, just because everyone has to reply as well, so that way we're not putting all that off. And then you've also had some of your writing pieces submitted as you're applying content for teaching writing. So you've had a personal writing piece, a descriptive writing piece, and a poetry writing piece. So now we're going to jump into what we have for week 4. So if you go into your syllabus and you get to week 4, you will see our learning outcomes. So we're going to focus on 1, 3, and 4 this week, not as much learning outcome 2. But you're going to familiarize yourself with tools and strategies to monitor student progress in writing. It's a big task to do, but an important one to do, and have the right system to make sure that you're getting students to meet the standards in writing. You're also going to compare and contrast classroom assessment practices in your placements now with some of the best practices of assessment that we are going to be seeing in Chapter 4 in the textbook. And then you are also going to create and implement a writing assessment and progress monitoring plan for a small group of students in your classroom. So for those of you who were in my Education 435 class, this last term, it's very similar to the tutoring project, but it's specific to writing and specific to this conferencing notebook system that we're going to talk about here shortly. So you can see here some of the resources. You're going to be reading Chapter 4, and you're going to be watching actually several videos on conferencing and writer's workshop. And then your tasks that you'll be completing. You're going to be creating an assessment or conferencing notebook system, completing the discussion board, creating a student assessment plan and the assessment plan itself, and then scheduling a midterm meeting, which we'll talk about what that means. So let's go back to our page, and we're going to go into week 4. And everything is loaded up here into week 4. And there's a lot this week because I wanted to make sure you had enough to be able to answer any questions that you may have, since we're not meeting face-to-face. All right, so discussion board is first. So in Chapter 4, we talk about best practices when you're assessing writing. So there are several that are mentioned in the chapter. For your discussion board, I want you to choose 2 of those best practices and do those 3 things listed there. Number 1, identify the practice. So is it going to be observing, conferencing, reviewing writing samples, keeping records, checklists, rubrics, portfolios? Pick 2 of those. Explain the best practice. Why is that a best practice, or why are those best practices? And then tell a little bit about if that's happening in your classroom. So depending on how writing is taught in your classroom is going to dictate a lot of how these are implemented. These best practices are implemented in your current classroom placements. So you're going to answer 1, 2, and 3 for each of those 2 best practices that you choose. Remember that you're going to post your initial comments to that, and then you are going to reply to your other colleagues' post as well. So the next thing I have here for you are 3 short videos about conferencing and writer's workshop, and there are a couple of different videos. So one video is going to take you to a video that will show you a one-on-one writers conference and really gives you a good idea of some specific feedback to lead students to that next step in writing. We also have a video that's going to show you kind of more about the teacher end of what it looks like. So it's going to show you a conference, but it also has a lot of teacher guidance and feedback and specific praise as well that I want you to have a chance to see. And then the third one is a video where the teacher from the second video actually is explaining her conferencing notebook system. And this is an important part for you to really watch and pay attention, take some notes, because you're going to take thoughts from each of these videos, and apply them to creating your conferencing notebook. So when we go back into our week, you're going to see another sample. So this is not something that you have to replicate, but it is a sample of a conference sheet that we used in a school district that I came from. So it's just something to kind of put your eyes on. It is not like the end-all be-all conference sheet, but it is something that can help you as you're creating yours. So it's just there as a resource for you. And then I have here some rubrics. So one of your tasks and learning outcomes is that you are going to create your conferencing notebook system, your rubric. When you watch the videos and you watch the conferencing, you will understand why it's critical to make sure that you have a system in place for keeping track of all that information. You, ideally, when you're in your classroom, will be teaching in a writer's workshop type format where there is time built into your instruction that really allows you to sit down and have one-on-one meetings with students to give them feedback and support and guidance on how to kind of jump to the next hurdle and close that gap or that area of need in their writing skill. So you're kind of building the bridge with them to get them there. So you are going to create your conferencing notebook system. So this is going to be a digital conference notebook because in reality, we are in schools that are increasingly providing students with devices that they are using. So they may not be writing on their device, but we need to be able to have that information electronically available. Now, in real life, you may do a binder like the third video is going to show you, and that's fine. For this course and this task, I want you to do it electronically. So you can read here that you're going to create a conferencing notebook that you would likely use in the field as a teacher. Make sure you watch those 3 videos before you create the notebook because they walk you through some of those pieces of the notebook. The format and the program are yours to choose. If you want to do it as an extended Microsoft Word document, if you want to do it as an Excel spreadsheet with tabs, of course, Google Docs and Google Spreadsheets. If you wanted to do it anyway, Google Slides, if you wanted to use a particular program that may be out there for student conferencing, you are welcome to choose your format. It should be something, though, that you would use as you conference with your students. So it's not something you're going to build for the sake of meeting this criteria. And although you're going to do that, you want it to be something that you can actually use as you're conferring with students. It should be something that's accessible and user-friendly because you want to be able to be taking notes during student conferences. As a teacher, you are incredibly busy, and you can have powerful conferences while you're with your students. But if you're not able to take notes while you're there in the conference, I promise you, you will either forget some of the things you talked about or you will forget altogether to write your notes about that conference because you mean to do it when they go to lunch. But then you get stopped in the hallway, and so then you're going to do it after school. And then you get a phone call from home, and you have to go home, so then it's like 24 hours later, and you just don't even remember. So you want something to be user-friendly that you can use while you're in the conference. So it's 50 points for you to develop this notebook. And you're graded in these 5 areas. So the organization, is it well organized and does it allow you to access individual students and take notes? That will make sense after you watch the videos. You also need to be tracking the frequency of the meetings, the content of the conferences, the needs, and the strengths that are addressed in the conferences. So when I say tracking frequency, I mean that you have a place in your notebook where you are tracking the frequency of each student's conferences. So of course, as you're having the conference and you're talking to that student, you're going to write the date and what you're talking about. But you also need to be able to have a quick view of all of the students in your class and how many times you're meeting with them. Because what you'll find is you may be meeting with a student every day, and then you may be meeting with the student 5 times, and then you may not have met with the student at all and you didn't realize it. So that's important. You also need to track the content. What are you talking about? You need to track the needs. So what are the needs that you're going to have to address with the students, and tracking the strengths. Now, here you are simply building the structure in the system. You are not having to put any of the information in. You're just building the system that's going to hold it. Where the information is going to come in is in your assessment plan. So in your assessment plan, and this again is exactly pretty much like the tutoring project that those of you did in 435, except now we're focusing on writing. So you're going to have a writing group, and in reality, in Writer's Workshop, you don't typically have groups because you do one-on-one conferences. And so when I say that you're having a conferencing group, I just mean that you have identified 1, 2, 3, or 4 students that you're going to check in on and have writing conferences with. But it's not like you're going to pull all 4 of them back to a table as a small group. Writing conferences are very individual, so you want to make sure that you are doing them with each student on their own, but that you have between 1 and 4 students. So you're getting this group of students that you're going to individually meet with and provide feedback. And then you are going to create an assessment plan where you're identifying, based on a pre-assessment or an individual writing piece, what writing standard do you want them to meet? And it could be North Carolina Standard Course of Study specific. You could also use some of the pieces that we've learned about, like our 6 traits of writing or the strategic writing strategies. So those could be something you use as well. And then you need to write down your projected conference dates and then any resources that you're going to provide to them during the conference. And a lot of that happens organically as you're meeting with the students, so it will come together. Then the notebook itself. So the structure in the system that you created in your conferencing notebook, you're actually going to then make a copy of and use for this assessment plan. And then you're going to write a summary of student progress and growth using data. So they may have scored or received a certain grade on their initial writing piece, but by their final writing piece, they're at this point. And then your reflection of the whole process. So there is a Turnitin link here for both of those. I extended the link until the end of the term. I think December 1st is the day that I put it at. Because 1, your assessment plan is going to be ongoing. You're going to be meeting from this point on with your students in their individual conferences. So you're going to be building that as you go. And then your notebook you will send to me before that because you're sending me just the template and just the structure of the notebook. And then you'll create a copy of it to use in your assessment plan and in your work with your students. The last thing that I have is this doodle poll for our midterm meeting. So one of the things I mentioned in week 1 is that I really miss the opportunity for us to have face-to-face conversation, and I would love to hear some of the things that are going on in your classrooms and your feedback on the course. So I created a doodle poll. So when you click on there, it should take you to a time when you can put in a place where you can put in your information, and you're going to check and let me know which of these times that you can meet. So I know that you are all working during the day. So I have a couple of days where I have like 3:30 to 4:30 or 4 to 5 appointments. And then I have some that are 7:30 to 8:30 appointments because I know that's kind of typically after bedtime. If we have one of these, the goal is that we all have somewhere, sometime that we can all meet together. If not, we'll figure something out. Maybe I can do individual Zoom conference calls, and I'm fine with that as well. So if you can, in your link for the doodle poll, also complete that. So I know there's a lot going on this week. It's kind of the setup for what you're going to be doing the rest of the week because you're going to be checking in with those students as you're conferring throughout the next 4 weeks as well until the end of the term. If you're having a complication on getting that group together or identifying those students, or if your current partner classroom or classrooms do not conference, if you have a partner teacher that is not comfortable with you doing this or not used to it, please let me know. And we will either have a conversation with your partner teacher to get that support for you, or maybe we'll have to think of something else. So if you all have any questions, please let me know. I know this is a busy week 4 and it's a busy time of year. I'm always here for you if you have questions, and thank you so much.